Hey, this is Blondeguygamer and welcome to Black Sheep Game Reviews. So, Double Dragon 5. If there's one game that truly lives up to the term Black Sheep and was so notorious that it became a blasphemy to even be part of a franchise, it's this one. Now, with games like Castlevania Judgment and Sword of Sodan, I more or less knew what I was getting myself into. But this? No, I didn't. Because a few years ago I found this cartridge at a pawn shop, just thinking it would be a typical sequel to the Double Dragon games. But as soon as me and my brother played it, everything that was fun and familiar with Double Dragon died in an instant. After the initial shock was over, I started to wonder how the hell the series led up to this. Well, let's start from the beginning. Double Dragon started out as an arcade game made by Technos Japan Corporation, who were also known for their Kunio-kun series. It was among the early arcade beat-em-ups after Technos' own Renegade, and Double Dragon spawned sequels due to its success. Double Dragon 1 through 3 were also ported to pretty much every console at the time, with the NES versions being the more well-known and played. The fourth game, Super Double Dragon, was actually a Super Nintendo exclusive, and while I haven't played or owned that one yet, does look good, especially when compared to the Ballbuster 3 was. But after Super Double Dragon, downfall. Crashing and burning downfall of oversaturated franchising. In 1993, a cartoon for Double Dragon from Deke was made. An early 90s cartoon based off of a video game. Now how did that turn out?
Michael, remember the code of the dragon. The only sure way to win a fight is to avoid it.
Yeah, about as well as you expect. The TV show was mostly just yet another dumb, cheesy 90s cartoon and a marketing ploy for toys if the ridiculously designed vehicles and costumes in it weren't obvious enough.
Merchandising! Merchandising!
The cartoon lasted for 2 seasons, but before it bit the dust, the live-action movie was released. And I don't think I have to tell you how that one turned out. Oddly enough though, a Japanese-only Neo Geo game was made in '95 based off the movie, but we'll get into that after we talk about Double Dragon 5. There is actually a reason why I brought the cartoon besides the obligatory history lesson. Because this game is based off of the cartoon. Yeah. Even the subtitle, The Shadow Falls, is taken directly from the show as it's the war cry the bad guys, the Shadow Warriors, yell goofily in it. The Shadow Falls! Okay, I understand they were trying to merchandise the hell out of the TV show, but they make a game based off of that and named it a sequel to the source material the show is based off of. That's just a really weird loophole. It's almost the same sort of loophole that Street Fighter the movie game was. But at least Capcom didn't name that Street Fighter 3, although admittedly that would have been kind of funny. Speaking of Street Fighter, one game that took gaming by storm in the early 90s was Street Fighter 2, revolutionizing fighting games we all know and love today. Because of this and other successful franchises like Mortal Kombat, other fighting games started popping up and was practically the first-person shooter of the early to mid-90s. Unfortunately, this is another reason why this bastard child game exists, because it's in this genre. Yep, we went from beat-em-ups to a Street Fighter 2 knockoff based off of the cartoon. Sellout doesn't even begin to describe it. And if that wasn't enough, the final nail on the coffin is that this game was not developed by Technos Japan. Instead, Lane Interactive Media developed the game for the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis in 1994, while Telegames made a Jaguar version the following year, because that system didn't already have enough bad games. Tradewest, who published the first Double Dragon on NES, Super Double Dragon, and Battletoads and Double Dragon, as well as being the copyright owners of the cartoon, were the publishers for 5 too. But because Technos weren't involved and Tradewest only handled Double Dragon West Side, the game never came out in Japan, and only the Super Nintendo version made it to Europe, most likely due to the fact that it's based off an American cartoon and didn't have a wide international audience. Ugh, just listen off what a train wreck this is! What the hell was Tradewest thinking back then? Good news, everyone! Yeah, it's just me. Oh, right. Anyway, the good news is that the Double Dragon cartoon's gonna be aired soon! There's a Double Dragon cartoon? Well, yeah, we have toys and everything lined up for it. And there's even a movie in production. They're making a movie too? Oh, come on, man, where have you been? We're making Double Dragon the next big franchise. The cartoon's gonna be such a big hit that we're gonna need to make a game for it. Wait, what? It's already based on the Double Dragon games. Yes, but the Techno guys aren't gonna make another Double Dragon game anytime soon. But since we have the rights to the cartoon, we can make the next Double Dragon game based off of that. Okay, so are we just making another beat-em-up or something with the cartoon characters instead? Oh, please! Beat-em-ups are so 1991. But isn't Rare making the Battletoads and Double Dragon game? True, but this is for the cartoon. We need something fresh, something that'll make a game a huge hit. Something... What are you playing? Oh, just some Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter, eh? Those fighting games sure are popular. That's it! We'll make it a fighting game! Please tell me you're joking. Of course I'm not! What better way to appeal to all the gamers out there than with the new Double Dragon game being in the hottest genre right now? I think that's a terrible idea. Glad to hear it. We'll get Lane Interactive to start immediately. Move over, Ninja Turtles. Double Dragon will be the only thing kids will talk about. Yeah, that's pretty much my theory on how that came to be. Now, normally I wouldn't go on this much before I even start the game, especially since the Double Dragon fighting game isn't completely far-fetched since the first game on the NES did have a fighting mode in it. That hasn't aged well. But my main gripe is that this is called Double Dragon 5. Super Double Dragon wasn't numbered, yet this is only for the fact that it's the 5th game in a series that's known for its beat-em-ups and nothing else. I mean, it would be like if Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Tournament Fighter was named as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 5. Imagine how many people would be pissed off they got a fighting game instead of a sequel to Turtles in Time. Was Tradecraft really that desperate to make this game relevant in the overall series? It's outright despicable and suckers people's expectations thinking it would be like the other Double Dragon games. Like me. Okay, I talked about the series history. I brought the cartoon and that the game is based off of that it was cashing in on the Street Fighter 2 craze. I know I rambled on, but I wanted to show the ugly truth and how much I despise this game. I'm not even that huge of a Double Dragon or fighting game fan, but this is such a shameful betrayal that only helped to sink the series into near oblivion along with the movie and cartoon show. If you still don't think this game will be that bad despite all this, well, you either never play this or play any good fighting games, have you? Let's start this bastard. Now I know I mentioned that this game came out on the Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, and even the Atari Jaguar of all things, but I'll be focusing on the Super Nintendo version since it's the one I own. The Genesis version is pretty much the same except it has ridiculous looking blood, sort of like the Genesis version of Mortal Kombat having blood with a code while the Super Nintendo didn't. The Jaguar version is a bit more different, well with it being made from another developer and all, but it's still essentially the same with slightly altered graphics. Kinda sad to see this ported over on a supposed 64-bit system though. While I already established this game is a Street Fighter clone and the term Street Fighter ripoff can be considered derogative when describing most fighting games at the time, I am being flat out honest when I say Double Dragon 5 is the biggest Street Fighter ripoff I have ever played. And just how much did they rip off? Well, if I were to write everything down and put it in a book, I'd say this much. Okay, slight exaggeration, but the amount of things I did notice is still staggering. It won't fool anyone that are even only remotely familiar with fighting games. I'll get the obvious similarities out of the way first. Double Dragon 5 is a 2D fighting game with a 6-button attack system consisting of low, medium, and high punches and kicks, with pressing away from your opponent being the block. While taken from the fighting system of Street Fighter 2, I'll let that slide since a lot of fighting games around that time used those types of fighting controls. Same with using special attacks as they are similar and work like most 2D fighting games. However, while those can be excused, the rest of the similarities go past let's make this like Street Fighter 2 and into let's make this exactly like Street Fighter 2. Here's a list as to why that is. Having a character selection you can't back out of and every button is a confirmation. A voice announcing the beginning of each round, or matches in this case, and shouting "Fight" when it starts. Said announcer shouting "Fight" when you unpause the game during a match. Having spectators in the background. Characters getting stunned for a few seconds after getting hit several times in a row. Having the music speed up when the character's health gets low. The game going into slow motion when someone gets knocked out. Character portraits with the winner taunting a beaten up loser after the fight. A countdown timer with the announcer voice saying each number as it goes down during the continue screen. Having a press start prompt over the CPU health bar in single player, and when the second player presses start, goes back to the character selection screen to start a 2-player game. And that's just covering the game design aspect. There'll be more similarities to showcase when we get to the characters, which we get 10 to choose from the get-go. The first two are the Lee brothers of Billy and Jimmy, or Bimmy and Jimmy if you go by the typo in Double Dragon 3. Their names and basic looks are pretty much the only things they have in common with their previous game counterparts. For starters, they use swords to fight, which they use in the cartoon despite them never using swords in the previous games as far as I know. As for how they fight, they both use similar moves, which pretty much makes them the Ryu and Ken of this game. Though I am curious about one thing. In the cartoon, if one Lee brother got hurt within close proximity of the other, they both share the pain. So wouldn't that affect them while fighting each other in this game? Then again, the dossiers list Lee brothers as 25 years old according to the date of birth and the time the game came out, while in the cartoon they were 18, so I doubt the developers even knew about these things from the actual show they're making the game for. Not only that, but at no point in the entire game do the Lee brothers transform into their more powerful Double Dragon forms. It'd be like if in a Power Rangers game none of the Rangers transformed. Then again, the costumes when the Lee brothers do transform are pretty stupid looking, and I'm not that disappointed those didn't make the cut. With the other characters, the rest are just Shadow Warriors. Normally this wouldn't bother me since Billy and Jimmy usually are the only two good guys in Double Dragon games, but if you were to watch the cartoon, the Lee brothers actually had other characters helping them, and some were even made into Dragon Warriors. And none of them are in this game.
Hey kids, you fans of the other Dragon Warriors and want to play as them in our awesome fighting game? Well, too bad, you little shits, they're not in this, because we need to rush this out and get your money ASAP.
So instead, we have the bad guys that Double Dragons face in the show, 2 stock Shadow Warriors, and 1 character that never showed up in the cartoon at all. Great. First off is Lockjaw, a big purple guy that looks like a California raisin on steroids with short reach that bites, spits, and licks things, who barely had any screen time or lines in the first season of the show. It should also be noted that his fight style is called Chuzitsu in this game. Okay, I get that the game is trying to be funny with the dossier profiles, but much like the cartoon's sense of humor, it's not very funny. What's even more insulting is that in Eternal Champions, they actually do list off proper fighting styles for most of the characters in that game. While some can be questionable as to why certain characters would know those styles, at least the developers in that game did their homework. Lilane Interactive did not and just made shit up for dumb jokes. Then there's Icepick, a swordsman made out of ice who specialized in computers and technology in the show, because every 90s cartoon needed absurd levels of technology in present day so we can wow the kids. Despite the fact he never used any form of ice power in the show, he uses ice special moves and is basically Sub-Zero with a sword. Bones is the original character in the game and is a blinged out skeleton with a Tommy gun. Sure, why not? He can also shoot laser beams out of his eyes because 90s. And because he's a skeleton, we have some lovely bone puns in his dossier, such as him liking Marilyn Monroe. Excuse me. Next up is Sickle, who attacks with wing blade things, and can turn to a buzzsaw. Blade here is actually based off a generic Shadow Warrior from the cartoon, and looks like he's constantly flipping the bird with his claw weapons. Not to mention having a dive move similar to M. Bison or Raiden. Trigger Happy is a guy with a cannon for an arm, even though in the TV show it was just a gun he wore over his arm. He likes to spam projectiles and can even emit electricity for some reason by spamming kick and excuse me. There's Countdown, who mostly just fired missiles in the cartoon, but in this game he can transform into a missile as a special move. Okay. Alright, I'm about to fire my missile and murder the Double Dragons! No, Countdown. You are the missile. And then Countdown was missile! Lastly, we have Sika, a female version of a Shadow Warrior, even though there were no female Shadow Warriors in the show. But hey, we don't want a sausage fest in our fighting game now, do we? She specializes in slashes and ripping off Chun-Li's spin kick. I think I can safely say that these characters are some of the lamest I've seen in a fighting game. Especially if you've never seen the cartoon, and even if you did, most of the characters are just dumb bad guys. It also doesn't help that the aforementioned Dragon Warriors or support characters aren't in this game at all and could have easily replaced the 2 nondescript Shadow Warriors in a gangster skeleton that's completely out of place. With the gist of the characters out of the way, let's get into the single player, which there are 2 modes of. One is Tournament, which is the standard just fight everyone single player mode, and the other is Quest mode, which is the same thing except you get a brief, and I do mean brief, story. But we'll get Tournament mode out of the way first. It's here I got my first taste of the game, and it doesn't taste very good. The fighting isn't very smooth and just feels clunky. Not to mention the AI taking advantage of that and being extremely cheap and spamming special moves. Speaking of which, the special moves are pretty unintuitive to perform since most character moves use the same inputs such as quarter circle down back and attack, or hold back for a second then forward and attack, making the variety of special attack methods for characters lacking. Some moves can take a while to perform, giving your opponent an easy opportunity to interrupt or block them, while others initiate almost instantly and can last for several seconds, making the combat unbalanced. The only thing I'll give a little bit of credit for is before each fight you can set your attributes for attack, defense, and special attack power. While it is the only original thing this game has to offer, it doesn't affect the game too much in the long run, though some tweaking and experimentation can work in your favor. Which is what I did after getting my ass handed to me by taking a point away from my defense and special attack to maximize my attack. But even after that and trying to play the game on easy, I still got beat. It doesn't help that I was still adapting to the unpolished fighting and that this game uses limited continues. However, I soon discovered an exploit. You can run up and spam medium punch and throw your opponents repeatedly onto the ground. At first I thought this was a fluke since the difficulty was on easy, but it's still possible to do this on normal, hard, and even the hardest pro setting. Granted, on the hard difficulties it doesn't always work, as the AI will sometimes block and be more aggressive, but it's still something you can exploit to counter the bullshit AI. So after dribbling all the fighters, including a clone of you, we face our first boss character, a dominatrix woman named Dominique.
You know, for kids!
She also never appeared on the cartoon, for obvious reasons, and is pretty annoying to fight due to one special attack she uses that lasts forever and you need to crouch and block to avoid the blunt of it. After that is the Shadow Master himself, who attacks with his staff and teleports everywhere. Naturally, being the final boss in a fighting game, he's cheap, especially on the hardest difficulty where even my throw spamming tactic wasn't working as well. However, by mostly just standing and mashing the medium attack button, I was able to defeat the Shadow Master.
I just beat this game on the hardest difficulty by mashing X over and over. Yeah, remember being able to do that in Street Fighter 2? Of course you did, because that game was probably programmed and play-tested!
Anyway, beating the game on easy and normal just gives you the crits, but on the hard difficulties you get a 2-frame animation with a sentence of text for the character ending. Because that's worth playing the game on hard for! Also, beating Tournament on Pro is supposed to give you the code to unlock the boss characters, but I didn't see it, maybe due to the fact that I used continues. Either way, thanks to the modern day convenience of internet and game facts, we can currently say fuck off and not have to resort to beating the game on the hardest difficulty for those codes. Quest mode is also just as unfulfilling since it's just the tournament mode with a tacked on story. Said story is about the Shadow Master planning to unleash something very addicting called Oblivion. No, not quite. It's actually a powerful drug and was a plot in one of the cartoon episodes that made people's eyes glow green and wreak havoc on the city. Ah, so this is where Final Fight Streetwise got the idea for glow from. No wonder both cities are called Metro City. When you play as Billy or Jimmy, their mentor, so originally named the Oldest Dragon, tells you to go stop the Shadow Master's plan. Oh, and keep in mind that in the first episode, the Oldest Dragon disappeared or something since saying that he died would be too traumatic for the children and only appeared as a spirit in later episodes.
Bah, who needs consistency? The kids dumb enough to buy this game won't care.
Before each fight, you get the same screen with the Oldest Dragon, who basically just tells the Lee brothers, fight this person in this stage, with no dialogue interaction with the other characters at all. Yeah, Bloody War 2 story mode this ain't. Though the game does explain that the Shadow Warriors made a clone of you for the Doppelganger fight. Too bad they never thought of doing that in the show. So you defeat the Shadow Master and the Oldest Dragon tells you he's defeated, yeah, no shit, but only for now as he might return. And after that you just get the credits, making me wonder why they even bothered making 2 single-player modes if the story was this pointless. However, if you play as any of the other characters for Quest mode, the Shadow Master tells you who you'll be fighting instead, and when you defeat Dominique, you become his right-hand man as the Shadow Boss and win the game.
Maybe it's because I play as a Shadow Warrior on normal, but we don't even get to fight the Shadow Master? Really? He could have been all like, no, your final challenge is me, or your character fights him because he or she wants to be the Shadow Master. But no, corners need to be cut.
Since we're on the topic of cut corners, there's one more feature this game has, the Overkills. It's kinda like Fatalities, but really lame, even more so than the Super Nintendo Mortal Kombat ones. Main reason being that instead of inputting a combination when prompt, it's triggered when one of the 6 basic punch and kick attacks depletes the last of someone's health for the overall victory, and the attacks that do cause an overkill in someone varies from person to person. Not only are the overkills lame and sometimes bizarre, but are not rewarding in the slightest. Because basic attacks triggered them, you'll most likely just discover these by accident, and even when you do know what will cause an overkill on someone, there's no real incentive to do them. It's the most half-assed fatality system I've seen. It seems like it was only added to rip off Mortal Kombat as well. So after the single-player disappointments, all that's left is Versus, Battle Demo, and the Dossiers. Versus is the 2-player mode, which can be fun for a little while, if only to laugh at the stupidity with someone, but as my good friend and fellow reviewer SCXCR said in his War Gods review, you have to be pretty stupid to screw up the multiplayer in a fighting game, and giving credit for that would be like giving credit to the developers for being able to dress themselves every morning. Battle Demo is just watching 2 AI characters fight each other, which is pretty pointless since the fighting in this game isn't very impressive. Finally, the Dossiers are the aforementioned character profiles, but be prepared to lose a couple brain cells due to the stupidity of some of the punny things listed. And that about covers everything in this game except the presentation, which is also not very impressive. While the graphics are colorful, the detail and animation isn't that good, especially when games like Street Fighter 2 came out beforehand and looked much better in comparison. Plus, the characters are pretty ugly looking. Even though the characters in the cartoons suffer from disproportionate muscular bodies that was common in cartoons and comics during the 90s, aka Rob Liefeld syndrome, their video game counterparts actually look worse and are even more disproportionate in comparison. The different stages, while some being locations from the TV show, don't really stand out all that much. Though I swear one stage had vehicles from the show put there just for the sake of marketing. Hey kids! You like our awesome cartoon show and kick-ass fighting game? Then you'll love our Double Dragon Mobile and Double Dragon Bike toys! Go to your parents and beg them to take you to Toys R Us right fucking now! I need money because I can't sleep without a prostitute! Buy them now! As for the music, it's mostly forgettable. While a few tracks like the title theme are decent, the rest is generic 16-bit sounding stuff and only serves to fit in with the lack of effort the rest of the game has. Though the character selection loop is perhaps the most 90s thing I've heard and couldn't make it any more 90s even if I tried. Actually wait, maybe I can. So, yeah. The rest of the sound is of the same caliber too, as it's mostly just stock sound effects. Design-wise, it isn't very good either, as when you use a special attack, the sound and/or voice will play through regardless of whether you get interrupted or not. The voice samples are also highly compressed and can sound pretty bad. Some voices also don't match the voices of their cartoon counterparts at all, and certain samples are repeated for nearly all characters, particularly the "ruh" when throwing people. Then there's the announcer voice, who while has the best voice quality, doesn't sound all that interested.
Match 1, fight.
Match 1, fight, whatever. I've had enough of this game! I'm not joking when I say this was the worst fighting game I've played so far, and that it's no contest for being the worst Double Dragon game. It had the audacity to be titled a sequel to the classic Double Dragon games, it jumped the shark and ripped off Street Fighter so much I'm surprised Capcom didn't file a lawsuit, and the game was so hastily made so Trade West could cash in after the first season of the cartoon that resulted in a lazy game adaptation of an already dumb video game cartoon. And it's not like a full-on fighting game wouldn't have worked for Double Dragon either, as the Neo Geo game Technos made based off of the movie of the same name is actually a decent fighting game from the looks of it. Although that game only came out in Japan and was unfortunately Techno's last game they made. It's also thanks to Double Dragon 5, the cartoon, and the movie that this Triforce of exploitation completely and utterly stopped the Double Dragon series' momentum. The only other series I can think of that comes close to ending this badly are Bloody War and Ultima. I'd even go as far to say that Castlevania Judgment wasn't as bad of a butchered series game as Double Dragon 5 was. This goddamn game. I'm just pissed off with the massive amount of idiocy that was involved and why anyone thought this was a good idea. I don't even want to play the other Double Dragon games anymore. If all it'll lead up to is this, there's no way the series can redeem itself after that. It's dead and will stay dead. I'm done. Goodbye. Huh. I guess even a brutally murdered phoenix can still rise from the ashes.
To be a dragon, you gotta be strong. Humble, never bragging. Always fight for right, battling wrong with the power of the dragon. Live the code of the dragon. Fight for right, the might of the dragon. With the mark of the dragon. Live the code of the dragon.
Never intentionally harm another. Do not battle if you can avoid it. Jimmy and Billy Lee are Dragon Masters now.
Dragon Master was born with the mark of the Double Dragon. Live the code of the dragon.
Oh, almost forgot. Next review I'm doing is Command & Conquer Renegade, because after this review I need to play something with, fun in it. Later.
The Shadow!